Hi guys, thanks for clicking play, and I do apologise if you watched this video already that I uploaded yesterday. This is take 3 because the audio was still cooked, I think is the term. It was horrible. And so I've made that video private, and I'll take it down after I've uploaded this one. So I do apologise. I think only 2 people have watched it. The issue is actually I must have bumped a setting on my microphone. And so the microphone was sending the signal through too hot, which was distorting. So even though I was then bringing it down for take 2, bringing it down in OBS, that of course made very little difference. It was still distorted before it even reached the PC. So it's better now. I've just done several test things and it's better now. So let's get into it. First and foremost, I just want to open with saying this video is not intended for children, not because there's anything wrong with it. In fact, I'm not even drinking alcohol today. This is water. Yesterday I was drinking ouzo, but because it's of a retro nature, it is not aimed at children, despite the fact that it includes a game which may look like comic style graphics. It is intended for people my age who played these games when they were kids, so that we can reminisce between ourselves about what the games were like. So, no offence to any kids, but it's not marketed towards yourself. I do encourage you to go and watch Adventure Time. Okay, so, in fact, adults, Adventure Time is great as well. So with that out the way, and with my phone buzzing in my pocket, I will get the game running. Okay, I'll look at that in a sec. And we shall get into this. And it's a bit of a weekend for driving games. Dave did the Porsche challenge on his video. Got very close to winning the first race, but didn't quite manage it, did you, Dave? Now, the good thing is, because this is my take 3, there's a chance I might actually complete the game I'm about to load. So let's have a look at what I'm about to load. Just insert the tape virtually and let you guys see what I'm doing, and let's get this thing loaded. And it's WEC! It's WEC LeMan is the full title of the game. So while that loads, I'm just going to turn that volume down a little bit so that I can talk to you about WEC LeMan while it loads. So, yeah, like I said, I didn't beat it yesterday. I haven't beaten it. Okay, so let's jump back to when I played this as a teenager, and I played this at my friend Sean's house, and he had a younger brother called Gary who would often play with us as well, and they had a +2, so it was getting after that. You know, Matt and Daryl's house, we played on the 48K Spectrum. In that period I had an Acorn Electron. In fact, before I had the Acorn Electron I had a Philips G7000, and then my mate Steve got a +2 and Sean got a +2, and then shortly afterwards I got my +3. So yay for me, getting the best machine, thanks to my brother John. Thanks, John. I have to keep saying thank you to John because he does remind me over and over again that my entire career is thanks to him buying me computers, which is to a point true. Yeah, so this is where I played WEC LeMan at Sean's house with his brother Gary as well. Incredibly challenging game, even now, as I'll expand on when we start playing it. Bit of a false memory I had coming back to this, because see the Dunlop tyre thing there? You can see, where can I point? There, see the Dunlop tyre thing that they're going through there on the load screen? That had sort of blurred with the actual game footage in my head, and I thought you actually go through those tunnels, but you don't. The tunnels in the game itself are quite square. But other than that, it holds up to how I remember it, you know, fairly consistently. So I played it at Sean's house, and similar to my experience at Matt and Daryl's house, you'd spend half your allocated time, you know, before everybody had to go off and do dinner or homework or whatever, loading the game. This game takes a long time to load, which is why I'm talking to you now, because otherwise we'd just be sitting here watching it load. And so I never got particularly good at it at their house, because then everybody would have to have a go. That takes up time, and then by the time it's time for your second or maybe your third try at it, then, you know, it was time to stop and go and do other things. But because I had my +3 by then, I borrowed it off them, and I may have put it in my mum's dub-to-dub tape deck, and maybe I made a copy. I can't, in all honesty, remember. But I do remember the first time I took it home, it only took me a week, because I could then practice it consistently myself, I went back to them at the end of the week and said, guys, I've beaten it. And they were like, yeah, right, of course you've beaten it. Nobody's beaten WEC LeMan. Because in this game, you have to go through, I think it's about 3 checkpoints per lap of the Le Mans track. And you have to complete 3 laps to complete the game, which doesn't sound like a hard task, but actually it really is. And I did, I beat it. And then so I went to their house at the end of that week, and I remember them watching me vividly, and they sort of gave me prime place, you know, to prove to them. And I can't remember if, in all honesty, on the day I beat it or I came so close to beating it that it removed all doubt. And they were like, wow, that's amazing, because, you know, I at the very least got to right to the near to the crossing the line again at the end of lap 3. It shows you a map at the end, as you'll see. Going back to this game now in 2019 is a fantastic experience, because I argue this remains playable now as a Spectrum title. This holds up. This is fun to play, and it's challenging still. I mean, I play Gran Turismo games. I play what's that? Project Cars 1 and 2. You know, I've done everything from even I created a sit-down racing simulator chair with a G27 on my old PlayStation 3. And the chair that I created was made out of a 300ZX passenger seat, and I put the pedals and the gear shift in the same position, measured to the 350Z I had in real life at the time, so that I could practice for a 2-day classic rally I was entering. That's the level I go to. So to say all that, and of course I've done, you know, driving on tracks and stuff like that in real life. To have all of that and to still go back to an 8-bit game from the Spectrum era and go, this is fun and this is challenging, really says something about this game. And I've been practicing it. This has been my game of the week, if you like. Playing at WEC LeMan, played it a bit most evenings, and I haven't managed to beat it again. So again, it shows you how challenging it is. I think my driving style has changed since then and now. As we get into it, I'll explain, but you can kind of balance the throttle. Like if you take your finger off the throttle, it doesn't slow down with engine braking. It just holds. So it's a bit like setting a cruise control. So that's very good for getting around a corner or, you know, sitting behind some traffic before you then accelerate past them. Whereas I'm pretty sure back in the day, I wasn't thinking that advanced in terms of driving style, and I would literally just either slam the brakes on or I'd hit the gear to go into low gear, which was always my trick in outrun. You don't play with the brake pedal. I don't even know what that's there for in outrun. You just shift the gear shift into low and then back up into high. So yeah, different driving style I've adopted now, and I've certainly got close to beating it. I've got 1 pip away from crossing the line again at the end of the 3rd lap, but I just haven't managed to pull it off. So hopefully, given I'm having to do this 3rd take, maybe today's the day, because it would be nice to capture it. It's not the reason I'm redoing it. Seriously, the last version, the audio, I listened back to it. Hear this load sound? That was pretty much the sound of me talking. It was that distorted that, yeah, I can't put you guys through that. Still loading. Not quite as exciting loading a game on tape when you're not drinking ouzo. The reason I was drinking ouzo yesterday is because, and this isn't endorsing underage drinking, but that fits in with this whole 30-year thing I'm playing with, because the last time I tasted ouzo was probably about 30 years ago, which means I was about 16 at the time. And it's because I didn't drink it. My sisters had come back from Greece and said, oh, you like aniseed? Try a bit of this, and they just gave me a slither. And then there was a follow-up barbecue where I may have been pimping out ouzo to other 16-year-olds, but you know, it was fine. It was just a sampler. I was doing the same to them. Oh, you like aniseed? Try a little bit of this. Quite amusing. Today it's water because it's the middle of the day, and even I'm not that bad. Plus I have to go out driving in a minute. So yeah, there we go. How's your weekend going? In fact, let me know if you've played WEC LeMan at all, and especially if you've beaten it, and your thoughts on the game as well. The reason why, if you're not up on the whole change of rules thing, I can throw this in here because I need something else to talk about. You know, there are new rules around YouTube and content that is aimed at children, and it's going to be a bit controversial for a time, so I'm just sort of covering my back by stating this is genuinely isn't aimed at children. Just because it contains a game. Not that it makes that much difference to me at the moment, because my channel isn't monetized. It doesn't, qualify for monetization because I don't have the subs. So it's not like it affects income, but you never know what's going to happen in the future. So just want to put myself in the right spot. And the bigger issue apparently is if you say a video isn't for children and they deem that it is, that's when a fine can come into play. So, I don't know. Police, I get the idea, but to be in all honesty, parents should be monitoring what their kids do on computers and making sure the content is applicable. I certainly did with my kids growing up. So, anyway, right, here we go. So first and foremost, obviously keyboard. The controls on this are quite nice. So you can customize them, as you can see there. You've got redefine keys as an option, but they're quite spaced out. So you got Q is accelerate, but Z is brake. So you got a space in between, and then I is left and P is right. So again, you got a space in between there, and space bar itself is change gear. So it's actually quite nice. Your fingers aren't cramped up together. I'll just move that slightly so it's more in front of me. And my Razer, what is this keyboard again? It's a Razer Devastator. It's a Coolmaster Devastator 3. I keep forgetting what I've got. Just a cheap keyboard, and it feels quite Spectrum-y, if I must say. It's that kind of. So that's a nice touch. Although maybe that other wireless keyboard I have would be even more Spectrum-y. But let's get on with it. Let's get on with it, and we'll get into it. One of the keys I find, I'm not going to tell you how to beat this game. Turn the volume up a little bit. But you do want to get past this first set of cards by the first corner, otherwise you are in a world of strife, and there we go, that's exactly what I've done. So that first gear change in corner is quite critical. Other than that, let's talk about the game itself. Let's talk about what I don't like first of all in this take. And there are things that I didn't like back in the day. It's not that I didn't like them, they just niggled me. Because really, I love this game. This is fantastic, and I'll talk more about that as we go through. But if you look at the curbing, it looks like it gets fatter towards the horizon, which is not right. And I don't know, maybe there's a technical reason why that is the case, but it just niggles me. I think it's actually an optical illusion because I'm expecting it to get thinner, and maybe it's the same width. Maybe. I'm not going to count the pixels, but it's certainly not right either way. The other thing, notice when I'm in a straight line, both rear tyres appear to be rotating via a simple flashing of the sprite. When I turn, one tyre appears to stop completely. I'm not convinced that's how a LeMan race car corners, is by locking up one wheel. So again, a niggly little thing. It really is picky, but I can't think why that is the case. It's just not right. It's not right. So just those annoying little things. The sounds aren't quite right either. When you rev out in low gear, it's actually a low pitch sound, and then when you rev out in high gear, it's a higher pitch sound. Well, again, if you know anything about engines and gear ratios and stuff, it will be the opposite. I can't say that I picked up on that one as a kid, but I certainly notice it now. Other than that, this is a fantastic racer for the era. I love this game, and like I say, even now. So I'm just holding the throttle down there a little bit, as in sort of balancing it cruise control style to sit behind that traffic, just to explain what I was doing there. And again there, just to come up his inside and accelerate back out again. Yeah, so games on the Spectrum. Look, Outrun is the go-to. We all wanted an awesome port of Outrun on our home systems. And it didn't seem until you got into the consoles, and particularly the consoles made by Sega, obvious reasons there, we never saw a decent home port of Outrun. The Amiga version was pitiful, and on the Amiga, the go-to conversation still to this day is, well, how come we could have something like the Lotus series, which were phenomenal and blistering frame rates and really smooth gameplay, and how come Outrun was the abomination that it was, that we ended up with, because that really detracted from the experience. The machine proved what it could do on a game like Lotus, and was really let down. Now, there are technical differences which even I've been made to think about via conversations on forums. Like in Lotus, well, all the other cars are Lotuses, so that simplifies things. But Surely they could have, on Outrun on the Amiga, they could have made all the pedestrian cars, the civilian cars, let's call them that, the non-racing cars, make them all the truck or all the Volkswagen Beetle or all the Porsche 911, whatever you want to do, to simplify the game and give it a decent frame rate. I'm sure that would have been possible. But it's not what they did. Oh no, I've done badly now because I was concentrating on a bit of weird pixel that I had on the screen. Anyway, so why am I talking about Outrun on the Amiga? Well, because Outrun on the Spectrum, similar thing. I think as a port, the Spectrum port in some ways is better than the Amiga version. I can't believe those words just came out of my mouth. But the drawing of the graphics, colours and colour clash aside, obviously, but the drawing of the Testarossa and the other assets is more faithful to the arcade original on the Spectrum than it is on the Amiga, where they butchered everything for reasons unknown. But of course, it suffered an abysmal frame rate. Some of the levels were okay, depending on the number of assets at the side of the road. Others of them, were absolutely terrible. Sadly, my favourite level, where you go through those sort of stone tunnels, that was almost unplayable. But because there's a lot going on. This, for me, is the Lotus of the Spectrum era. This is a game that proved what the system could do on this style of game. Other games that spring to mind for me would be Overlander. That was nice and fast, but different style of game because you've got to shoot at stuff and stuff like that. And Road Blasters, similar concept as well. They're probably the fastest games I can think of. Oh, there was another one that I didn't mention on previous takes. There was one by... it's called Twin Turbo V8. That's what it was called. And it was by Codemasters, I think. That's quite an interesting game, but that does actually suffer from Outrun frame rate, if I can call it that. But that was almost a better stab at Outrun than Outrun was. And it was... Clearly they didn't quite have a Ferrari license, but the car clearly represents... It represents a Ferrari F40, and then at other points in the game it represents a Testarossa with a big wing on the back. So, yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. And I think it was the load screen is clearly meant to be a Testarossa, and the graphics on the cassette cover clearly was meant to be an F40. Bit of a confusing message being sent by that game all around, but a good fun game to play. So if you ever get your hands on that, give that one a go. But for me, this was the pinnacle. I never played Continental Circus on this. I believe it did come out on the Spectrum, so that might be another one to try. Oh, that was a bit tight near the signs. Did you see that? I'm going Senna, by the way. My vision is blurring and I'm just sort of in the zone, I hope, because I have had one or two crashes and I can't afford many to get a good round on this. But yeah, out of the games I played, this is certainly remains my favourite Spectrum racer, and playing it again today, like I said, in 2019, is a pure joy. You could fool me into thinking I'm playing something on the Amiga. Coloration aside, it's just such an enjoyable experience, a very arcade-like experience. So, back in the day, playing it at Sean and Gary's house, and when I borrowed it and possibly copied it, I remembered this track like the back of my hand. I remembered each and every corner and roughly where different cars would be presented to you, and also how much time you'd need left on the clock at any given point for me to be successful. I haven't got those memories banked away, I'm sorry to say, and in all honesty they haven't come flooding back, and even though I've playing this all week, I still can't remember. This is more like a rally to me. Every corner is new. I don't know what that means, but it's just not quite the same. I know there's a bit of a chicane somewhere that I can almost straight line it. Other than that, I played online during the PlayStation 3 era on Gran Turismo 5 against one of my friends. He rang me up and said, let's have a bit of a race. And when he set the game up and he chose the Le Mans circuit, I thought, I know the Le Mans circuit like the back of my hand. And as soon as we started playing, I'm like, this isn't very familiar. And of course it was a completely different representation of the circuit, plus the circuit's changed, totally different game. He thrashed the pants off me, and I think I was in some pretty high powered car, and he was in a reconstruction of his real life WRX, and he still beat me. Oh no, oh yes, oh that was tight. That was tight. What lap are we on, by the way? I think we're on lap 2 still. Oh, come on, up the inside. Accelerate. Right. I think we're still on lap 2. Bit of a farty noise for the engine, but oh, bugger. But we'll forgive it that. Ah, bum. That went all kinds of wrong. I'm concentrating now. I'm not going to get to the end. And I think if we're only on lap 2, look, I'll give it another stab. Just for the sake of it. Oh, let's see where we got to. If that was only a lap 2, I'm going to give this another stab. And, oh, that was lap 3. Look how close we got. That was lap 3. Okay, look, I'm happy with that. Look how close that was. I will beat this game. I will beat this game again. Because I did back in the day, I promise you. BCB, that's clearly my name. Yeah, so I hope that was enjoyable. We've gone for 21 minutes, so I won't do a second take. That was almost the end of lap 3. I can see myself. I'm on long service leave now, by the way, so I go and get my Amiga. In 2 weeks' time, I'll be on a plane. 2 weeks' time today, in fact, I will be on a plane. So that's great. Going to get my Amiga. That's not the only reason I'm going to the UK, obviously. In fact, that's not even the main reason, but it is an exciting part of that. But I can, yeah, but because I'm now on holidays, I will be doing some more WEC LeMan, and I'll let you know in the next video if I manage to clock it. So, yeah, good stuff. All right, cheers, guys. Thanks again for clicking play, and enjoy your week.